But I have been shaped by the mentorships of Black directors, queer designers, and community-rooted ensembles who didn't just offer me a gig. They offered me a way to survive, to belong, and to dream. But I've also watched those artists disappear, pushed out by rising rents, by inequitable funding, by systems that value imported prestige over local presence. And I've seen organizations, often under-resourced themselves, forced to make impossible choices between sustainability and local accountability. This project, Choose 30, Hiring Local, Building Legacy, is personal. It's about preserving the people and the practices that made me. It's about making sure the next generation of artists doesn't have to leave home to make a living or to matter. Today, I present to you all a call to action for incentivizing local arts employment in the Bay Area. Next slide, please. How many of you have went to Cal Shakes since you've been here? Cal Shakes, great. Bay Area Children's Theater, Exit Theater. Yeah. All these names I'm calling right now are places that have since shuttered. I have a quote on the wall right now from Josh Costello, who is the artistic director of Aurora Theater, who are in dire straits right now, who may or may not be producing a next season. And he said in an article in which they were asking local arts leaders, how might we save and sustain the Bay Area theater community? He said, we need local and state governments to greatly increase funding for the arts. Yes, we know. But we also need foundations to provide general operating support to organizations that employ local artists. And I was really intrigued by this idea of this local artist impact and why the focus on local artists. So I focused my work during a GAP on that question. That's the heart of this proposal, supporting artists where they live. Because the stage isn't just where stories are told, it's where cities define themselves. Next slide, please. So in this project, I am looking to incentivize local arts employment for a thriving Bay Area. Next slide. This campaign, Choose 30, is about economic and cultural sustainability. Inspired by successful local hiring models in construction, we ask if we can incentivize local labor to build buildings and infrastructure. Why not our symphonies, our stages, our murals, and our museums? Next slide, please. So we're going to be going through these points over this next 15 minutes or so. Advocating goals, the problem statement, why this matters, potential roadblocks, policy solutions, possible interlocutors, tactics and timelines, and measures of success. We'll explore where the obstacles lie, what policy solutions we propose, who our allies might be, and what we can do, starting now, to reclaim the stage for local artists. Next slide, please. So the problem. Next slide. The problem is clear. While cities like San Francisco have local hiring laws for construction, there is no real equivalent for the arts. The result, the very artists who animate our neighborhoods that development is growing in are pushed out economically, geographically, and culturally. It is not just unjust, it's inefficient. Next slide, please. Local arts organizations face financial pressures that often push them to hire non-local, sometimes supposed or so-called celebrity talent. This diverse economic benefits away from the communities their organizations claim to serve. The ripple effect, there's cultural erasure, economic leakage, and community disconnection. Next slide, please. And why this matter? What is the importance? Next slide. Here's why it matters. We know that the arts contributes $877 billion to the US economy every year. We know that. right? That is, we'll talk about how much more that is than construction brings to the economy, or development as they call it now. They reduce crime, as we've heard several times from my colleagues over here. They improve mental health. They fuel restaurants, hospitality, and tourism. But when artists are displaced, we know that entire ecosystems collapse. We know this. If we want to build a vibrant, inclusive Bay Area, this is an economic, cultural, and moral imperative. Next slide, please. So what are our policy goals? So I've been doing a lot of my work over this last 9 months, talking to friends, colleagues, artists, ADs, executive directors, and they keep saying we need to have incentives to have more local artists, right? We want to hire more local, but what was the money? Where's the incentive? And they don't understand that can be a policy goal. It can be a mandate, that we can look to government policy to do this work as well, not just us screaming in the streets, which I am a big advocate for. I like to scream in streets all the time. I knock on doors, I scream, I yell, I run, I shut down bridges, allegedly. But I do say that there's possibility in both advocacy, activism in the streets, and also policy in these Senate rooms. Yes. So our policy goals: create incentives for hiring local artists through mandates, right? Create a workforce development fund to sustain artist training and employment pipelines. So we'll talk about that later. And align with broader regional planning and equity goals, embedding culture into the DNA of urban development. Next slide, please. Policy solution 1, legislative incentives. Next slide. We look to precedents. So I was really looking at where has this happened in other sectors where we've had a local hiring goal. And I looked at 2 case studies. One was right in San Francisco, the local hiring goal for construction, as well as I looked at the Fannie Lewis law, which we'll talk about in a moment. So the San Francisco local hire measures required 30% of city-funded construction hires to be SF residents. Thanks to robust training programs like City Build Academy, even initial skeptics like trade unions now champion this measure. The lesson: we need to support training, making sure that there are people ready to do the work as artists for these companies, and even the skeptics will join the movement, perhaps. There is already these workforce development trainings that is happening in the Bay Area. One that I would like to bring up right now is Cal Scenic Workforce Development, who are training young artists to be scenic designers, carpenters, electricians, making sure that they know how to do the work of building theater, building operas, building musical sets, so that there's no longer this idea that there's no skilled labor to do this work in the Bay Area itself. So that's one idea. And also looking at the Fannie Lewis law, this is in Cleveland, and this redirected $34 million into the hands of local workers. However, unfortunately, this in Cleveland has had a lot of pushback. There has been, it's currently, they blocked it right now. It's still, the advocacy is still working and fighting for this. And it has faced a lot of state pushback. It offered a critical lesson: frame local hiring not as exclusion, but as economic justice. A redistribution of wealth to those who make the city thrive. So something to think about as we think about this policy. Next slide, please. Also I see my friend Sam in the back there, looking at the California Film and TV tax credit. The California Film and Television tax credit offers up to 10% additional tax rebates for hiring local labor. Let's ask, why stop at film? Why not extend this incentive to theater, dance, music, visual arts, etc.? This is a proven model. Let's build on it. Next slide, please. Policy solution number 2, looking to direct grants and subsidies. Next slide. So we're thinking about direct investment. We are proposing, and by we I mean I guess myself, but in communication, the royal we, the us, the collective we, propose the creation of a cultural workforce development fund that's perhaps like a public-private partnership. Thank you all who were here. That subsidizes the wages of local artists and supports training pipelines like Cal Scenic's Workforce Development Program. This model that I looked at was the Seattle's Priority Hire Program. That program is really working well. It's a private public partnership that is used to ensure local hires are getting work in Seattle. So it works. It's great. I'm interested in talking more about that and learning more about that. Also, next slide, please. We have this wonderful program. I'm not sure if y'all have heard of it. It's the Performing Arts Equity Payroll Fund. I think this is something happened about this in this room. I don't know, but right now thinking about as we envision integrating this, can we envision a local hire requirement into this eligibility in this fund? A 30% benchmark for hiring local artists. Can they choose 30 when they're applying for this equity fund? Maybe it's a good idea. Maybe it's fair, feasible, and fundable. Great. Let's move on. So where is the future place here? We're always thinking about how we move forward, and I'm always a dreamer. As an artist, I dream, and that's what we do as theater makers, as creators. We're always in the dream phase. So I'm thinking about the dream. What is the dream here? Next slide, please. The future we imagine includes a 30% local hiring requirement across arts funding programs, compliance systems modeled after SF's successful construction law, robust tracking of job creation and economic retention. We don't need to reinvent a wheel. We just need to realign it for the arts. Next slide, please. We're thinking about the timeline. And again, I know things move as they move, but I love this idea of 30, choose 30. So I'm like, why don't we think about 2030? Let's make that a goal, right? 2025, build coalitions, launch a Hire Where You Create campaign on media. 2026, pilot wage subsidies in partnership with foundations. 2027, push legislation regionally, share pilot success. 2028, expand funding, begin compliance tracking. 2029 to 2030, codify the Choose 30 mandate, maybe statewide. Let's see. Can we get there? You know, I'm bold. You know, we make bold theater around my part, so let's make some bold policies. And next slide, please. And how might we measure the success? How do we look at the local jobs created, tracking that? The economic retention in neighborhoods, public engagement and well-being, adoption of policy by cities and counties. This is more than about data. It's about dignity as well for these artists. Next slide, please. So artists shape memory. We foster resilience. We attract investment. Arts and culture does this. The labor of culture bearers and artists is infrastructural, and their displacement is a crisis. Of course, I want to leave you with the words of Representative Latifah Simon, who, yes, I heard someone say that's my girl, and you know we all love. Yes, I'm so glad that she's where she is. Without culture, without art, we are prisoners. What does it mean to be imprisoned in a space that has no culture? We know the work of erasing culture, of being imprisoned by people who says that culture should not exist or certain culture should not exist. We see that. We cannot afford to cage the very spirit that animates our cities. We cannot afford it. Thank you all. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah. So, for my policymakers in the room, let's work together to write a bill. If you're a funder, let's seat the pilot. If you're an arts leader, let's build the coalition. And if you're an artist, this is our city. This is our town. This is our bay. Our labor matters. Our voice matters. Let's choose 30. Let's hire where we create. And let's reclaim the stage. Thank you all so much.
Dang. All right, all right, all right. Please, audience, give it up for AeJay. Okay, there we go. Sam from the Make It Bay. Excuse me. What's up, Tess?
Like, come on, this is all my territory.
Yes.
Hi, that was amazing.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I can't pay you, but we should get some trouble together.
Absolutely. Make some good trouble together. Yeah.
Right? You know, it's Make It Baby on reason. It's not Make Film Baby.
That's right. That's right.
So I really appreciate what you're saying. I think two things, we should definitely talk more.
Yeah.
But two things that I think are going to be places where you should put some thought. And I'm curious, you know, where you have, how you've kind of been dealing with these things, because it's something that we've grappled with, is defining local.
Yes.
Especially when a lot of people have already been pushed out.
Yeah.
Where I always say, like, Oakland lives in Antioch now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if we're doing a project in Oakland through Oakland funding or with the city of Oakland, they have very clear borders that they are then beholden to. And so really understanding what local means and how you're going to show that, I think, is something that we are still grappling with and figuring out.
Yeah.
And I would love to continue to hear how you're thinking behind that.
Great.
And the other is any engagement that you've done within the union works, you know, SAG-AFTRA, IATSE, Teamsters. There is, I think, what you're talking about, as you mentioned with construction, there was a lot of conversation and opposition with the union, and then they started to work together and seeing how this training, you know, with the scarcity mindset of our people who are already in the union must get this work, and
Right.
you know, and the union covers more territory than what might be defined as local. You know, it might be a Northern California, but you're talking about higher 30 in Oakland. That interplay of who has the right to those training programs and are, you know, certified within the higher local, and the choose 30. And so those are my two questions. It was just your sort of thinking behind that. But because y'all gave me a mic, I'm just going to say thank you to Ted and to Julie and Afesha, and for having us be here. Like, this gave me hope right now.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think it was someone said earlier about bridging policy and art were two different worlds for them. It was hope. And I say, if those who knows me, I use this quote all the time. Fabiana Rodriguez said, policy is an idea whose time has come, but it is the artists who create the ideas. And Ted, to take those things and make them one is really powerful. And I just thank you. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I think this was definitely a conversation that we had in the room with our cohort, and that I was concerned about. So what my first worry when I was started to think about this project was the defining of local, kind of wetting the gum, like wetting the lips of some of our more conservative friends who might define local as citizen, and who might define and who might exclude those who they want to exclude by that definition. So I think that is something that that was a concern of mine from the beginning, and how to avoid sounding as though I'm in that camp. I do think that in this project, I'm thinking more regionally than thinking about countywide. So what does it look like to build regional coalition? So thinking about the Bay Area as a region, and not the Bay as this is San Francisco, this is Oakland, this is you know, Richmond. Because I know as an artist, I work in all the counties of the Bay, right? Like, I'm leaving this to go to Marin, right? I'm going to San Rafael to work there, and I work in Oakland, I work in San Francisco. And so I know that this idea of local cannot be tied to a countywide or a specific municipal or a city definition. So I'm thinking about, how does the Bay work within all 9 counties, work within a regional process to say, we are the Bay, we are stronger as the Bay. How do we hire our Bay Area artists? Also thinking about union and how we work with the union. The fact is that union houses are closing in the Bay, right? Cal Shakes was one of our largest union houses that was hiring local all the time. It is now closed. Aurora is maybe suspending its season. It is one of our biggest union houses that hire local. So looking at that and going to Actors Equity and saying, look, our local housing is closing. And so the houses that are left need to hire locally, right? Because If not, then our artists will leave, and the funding that you're giving to those spaces isn't actually going back into the economy that organization is there. So if I am a local resident and I'm not getting work here, I can't go to restaurants here. I can't feed into the economy here in the way that I should. Whereas someone who they might hire in for a 10-week contract will come in, they may go to one restaurant and they may leave. Here, I'm trying to sustain the base. So how do we say that the funding that you're giving to organizations should be pouring back into the communities in which you're saying you're supporting, right? So that's what I'm thinking about right now. Thank you.
All right, a round of applause for AeJay. You get to talk to him, and Roberta will hear more poetry later. We're